profanity, Bill.
Right, okay.
Okay, I think it just triggered that we're live. So, Rick, you want
Yes.
to call to order and I can go ahead, call us to order and I'll just let the public know if they don't have the agenda, how they could give comments. So go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to call our meeting to order and acknowledge that the press and public were duly notified in accordance with state law.
Okay, and for those of us or those of you that don't have I guess watching it on YouTube, you would know this, but it's www.youtube.com/user/City of Isle of Palms, all one word, is where this meeting can be viewed. And public comment can be made at www.iop.net/public-comment-form. I think both of those should be pretty readily accessible if you just go to iop.net.
Should we
Will
do a
we be
roll
able to
call?
see their public comments?
Yes, if you get public comments, I will forward them. They won't pop up here for you now, but I will have to forward them to you after the fact and we'll add them to the record.
Should we do a roll call?
Yes, yeah.
And- So tell me, I know Miss Spafford is missing and I don't know, so that would make 5. And you just said there were 5. So is that it?
So we're currently, Ron, are you there? Yeah, Lisa, I see Ron. I see his name. I haven't
Right.
seen or heard from him.
Okay.
So if we could get confirmation that Ron is on the line, we would have everybody but Lisa.
Okay. Well, let me do a roll call for who's here. So you have Mr. Mills,
Here.
Mr. DeGangi,
Here,
Mr. Ferenz,
Here,
and we're hoping Mr. Denton is going to join us shortly, and Miss Spafford is absent, correct?
That's my understanding. Still
Okay.
don't have confirmation from Ron. I wonder if he has, he may have microphone problems as well, which I think was Rick's issue. So we'll wait on that. We will count Ron absent until he confirms in some way.
Okay, we still have a quorum, so that's good.
Yeah. Rick, you want to do approval of the minutes?
yes. Okay, I would like to make a motion that the minutes of March 11th be approved.
I
I'll
will
go
second
ahead.
that.
Yeah, Bill second.
Okay,
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
and mark that as everyone being Mr. Mills and Mr. DeGangi as being in favor of it, and Mr. Ferenz.
In favor.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Okay, next topic is report on status of city reopening. Doug, it's all yours.
Yeah, so I will give I'm guessing if you all are probably have been made painfully aware of every step of the reopening, more so than you like at this point, but there are a number of things. I will just say, other than the obvious things that are being reported in the newspapers about access to the island, short-term rentals opening back up. We had there for a while the keep moving provision that's now been removed. And I will say that we have generally kind of gotten to a point where we have what I would call fairly mild controls in place, but we're generally open. I think, like I said, I think that's fairly obvious to those that have kept up with it. I'll be happy to answer any questions to things that I know the answers to, but probably what you may not have seen is just that this is really the week that the city itself is returning back to what I will call a normal basis of operation. City Hall will be open starting tomorrow. This, I think, is the first kind of regular meeting of the city. Every other meeting since the middle of April, every other meeting the meetings have been limited to just special, emergency type meetings. So I think you all are, again, on the cutting edge of meetings. But city council will resume their subcommittees and their regular meetings this week, really tomorrow. They kind of kick off in earnest with their subcommittee. So the city government really is kind of returning to normal at this stage. Does anybody have any questions or need any details about other parts of reopening?
No, actually, I'm good.
Okay.
Same here. I'm good.
Okay, good. So let's, if you're ready, Rick, we'll just move on to the comprehensive plan.
Yes, I had recommended, talked to Doug, I guess yesterday. I had recommended that we shelf this for a month because we're missing 2 members. And hopefully we'll have those spots filled the next time around. And it would be, if we started off on it today, they would be coming in at a synchronization. So my suggestion is that we postpone this for a month.
And I would just add to that, that we do have, the personnel committee, part of returning back to normal operations, personnel committee knew that they were going to fill the 1 spot on the planning commission. So they had the interviews lined up for that 1 spot. They had narrowed the candidates down to 3, and they're interviewing 3 at their meeting this week. Nicole, is that Thursday? It's either Wednesday or Thursday.
It's Thursday at 9.
The Thursday morning, they will interview 3 candidates, and it's now the staff's expectation that instead of appointing just 1, they will appoint 2 of those 3. So
That's great.
it's somewhat good timing. I don't know if they will appoint them immediately after interviewing them. I don't know if they'll make, and of course, personnel will make a recommendation to council. They don't actually do the appointment. So I don't know if they will take 1 more month or if we will have our new 2 members basically chosen.
Do you know who they are, Douglas, who the last 3 candidates are?
Yeah, so one is Chris Marquez, who is a real estate agent who is just finishing a house in Wild Dunes. So I know that was one of the things that the Planning Commission had requested, was that there be a Wild Dunes resident. One of them is Scott Pierce, who you all probably know of if you don't know him personally, but I think he had plans for running for council, and he shelved those plans. And he comes from a financial and business background. I'm pretty sure he was with Verizon as a financial advisor. There's Ron.
Hi, Ron.
He's still connecting. He's thinking about it. And then the last is Marty Brown, who is, I believe he's an aviation engineer out in North Charleston, lives kind of in the center of the island. So those are the 3 that I'm aware of.
Okay.
That's
Ron,
great.
can you confirm that you have been here for Nicole?
I could hear you. Can you hear me?
We can see you now.
We got you. See you and hear you. Thank you.
Okay, we're
So-
getting there.
All right, Ron's getting there. In terms of the comprehensive plan review, Rick's point was to wait until those two members are in place to really start that work in earnest. The other thing that we had in play there that we had talked about was we think that the future strategic plan would also be a document that we would want to dovetail in with the new comprehensive plan. That's number 4 under miscellaneous business, but I'll just go ahead and tell you that that project is still in the budget for the upcoming year. And the group that would be doing that strategic plan is going to be making a presentation to City Council at the Ways and Means Committee meeting, which is a week from today at 6 p.m. And I will share the link of that. That will be still be meeting virtually like this, I'm sure. And so I'll share that link with the Planning Commission members.
That'd be great.
I think it would be a good idea to just see who's involved with that group and see what they're talking, see what they're saying with council, and just getting a feel for what council's expectation of that project are. So that's a week from today at 6 p.m.
Who is the group? Who's doing the presentation, Douglas?
It is the Riley Institute with the College of Charleston. I know that Bob O'Neill, I can give you the names of the folks. Did you just want the institution, Bill, or were you looking for the actual names of the people?
I don't need the names. I just wondered who it was.
Yeah, it's the Riley Institute that's associated with the College of Charleston. Part of the.
Yeah, there was a promo that was handed out, I guess, last time, right?
Yes, there was.
Maybe if you could send Bill a copy.
Okay.
And that would be the 19th, correct?
That's correct. Tuesday,
Okay.
the 19th at 6 p.m. Ways and Means.
Perfect.
So I think that's, unless there, so, I would just kind of use the opportunity to remind everybody that we have now lost a couple of months more on the comprehensive plan, which I think we all had almost planned on anyway. We kind of wanted this strategic plan to be underway to some degree, and we knew we were losing Philip. So I just wanted to touch base with everybody and just have you kind of have that in your mind as work that we'll need to get to as soon as we get back to operating as normal. But I don't think, as Rick has said, I don't think there's it's urgent that we start working on it to the point where we're, trying to do it over Zoom. But once we get back, that will be kind of at the front of our plate. Any other questions on that?
Lou?
Rick, are you good to, I'll move on to drainage planning update?
Is there any new business?
I don't have any.
Okay, yeah, move on.
Okay. So Thomas and Hutton they went into a mode very kind of similar to what the city staff did, where they were working remotely. They were staggering days at the office. So they've been working continuously, but they have been a little bit fractured in their operations. But this project has been the small projects, the small install projects is what I've been calling them. They were really at a point that they were ready for submittal for permits, and that has been done. And they have told us that they feel like they are within a month of having the permits to do that project. We then expect that the bidding process for that project would take about 60 days to go out to bid and to get that subcontractor or that contractor under contract. So that puts us at the end of July for breaking ground. I'm sorry. That and then 3 months of construction. So that puts us really at permitted. Okay, yeah, that would put us into July for starting that project. End of July, early August, and then they are expecting 2 to 3 months for actual construction.
Can you describe that one a little bit, Doug?
So that one is, those are all improvements in the, what I would call generically the Forest Trail drainage basin. And the Thomas and Hutton did their modeling. They identified really 5 separate smaller projects that were, for lack of a better term, they were choke points in the internal drainage system that were, and they're going to open those choke points up, which is going to ultimately lead to more water making its way to the outfall, which is obviously the bigger project. So they were just internal improvements to that drainage basin being done in anticipation of the outfalls functioning better. So the hope is that with those smaller projects and then the bigger project of opening up the outfalls, that drainage basin should be operating significantly better than it currently is. So that really is that in a nutshell.
So Douglas, I'm wondering if anybody was out to visit the island in this last flood we just had, this last major storm. It would have been a good exercise for them to see some of the water on the roads, especially down Palm Boulevard, and how that may have had an effect. It's just curious whether they.
I don't, so I can tell you that Thomas and Hutton asked the questions about, what were the points, and they have been in contact with the Public Works Department, who really is the eyes and ears. And so I think they got secondhand reports of where the problems occurred.
That's good though. At least they got some feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, that really was kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's amazing.
5 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did hear from them that, they also work extensively in the old village of Mount Pleasant, and the old village had numerous structural damage houses, water into homes and flooding out homes.
Wow.
We did at least have 2 homes got water into them. One of those 2 is already has been awarded a FEMA grant to elevate the house in Forest
Okay.
Trail. Will ultimately be helped is served ultimately by that outfall there. So their drainage situation should improve. The other one is down around Second and Charleston, a kind of a bowl there where we know that a house had about a foot of water into it,
Ooh.
with just a freak rainstorm, which is pretty bad.
Yes.
Douglas, does the city have any drainage equipment that they can try to get water off the roads or away from houses? Is any pumps or anything?
It's just pumps, Bill. That's the only thing, other than that's kind of they have pumps and they used to deploy those pumps routinely to the avenues that just had the infrastructure added to them. They no longer have to do that, but they, down kind of near Vince's into the island, they used to routinely take the pumps, set them up at the end of those roads, and pump it out
They just don't have enough of them, apparently.
Well, I don't know. They have 4 or 5. I don't think that, what would happen with those pumps is the end of the roadways would be flooded. They would then go put those pumps in place, and it would take it 3 or 4 days to pump down the water level, which I don't think that we had that issue with these storms. I think it was just these areas had a system that served it, but it overwhelmed the system. And once the water receded and the rain stopped, it left basically before a pump could get the water out of there. I do know that they put them on the edge of Palm occasionally. When Palm, there are sections there that really don't have any drainage infrastructure. So, but in the areas that have infrastructure that gets overwhelmed, the pumps are just too slow to the system itself will relieve the puddle before the pumps would. So moving on to the bigger outfall project, Hutton has indicated that they anticipate that they will have permits in hand by late fall or early winter. They expect that they would go and get bids in November and start construction at the beginning of 2021. That project they anticipate to be a 9-month construction project. So that gets us into September 2021. So they're still working on it. They're, those are all moving ahead steadily. Any questions on the drainage projects?
I have a question.
Okay.
On a couple occasions, the mayor has talked to me about this one, asking how it's coming along, blah, blah, blah. And he keeps talking about what happens next. He wants to see a plan about what happens next after this particular phase. Should we put that into our bucket, or should we approach him and ask if that's something he wants us to do?
Well, I can tell you that the Public Works Committee and really by virtue of working through with the Ways and Means Committee on the budget, council has been pretty, they've been very engaged on that question in terms of should the next step be a long-range plan? Should it be another project? So they are kind of wrangling with that right now, and while they decide how much they need to put into their upcoming budget.
Well, I don't want to have the mayor have the impression that we're working on something and we're not.
Yeah, I get that. We certainly could. But again, I wouldn't want to. They're going in a certain direction, and they feel, they're committed to a certain direction for for whatever reason. I don't know that we would need to interject unless there's some compelling reason to do that. But I can certainly ask the Desiree and the Ways and Means Committee or the Public Works Committee that have been working on developing next steps, ask if they need the assistance.
That would be good.
Okay. Anything else on that?
Nope.
No.
So next on the agenda is the update on the MOU with the Water and Sewer Commission. The, really the only thing kind of underway with water and sewer at this point is they are at a point where they need to be able to borrow money to make improvements at the Forest Trail treatment plant that would allow them to take the Wild Dunes treatment plant out of operation. That was a project that they were kind of ramping up to go before council before we got into the lockdown. And so they are at a point now that they want to breathe life back into those conversations. And their plan is to be, I think they would like to be at that same Ways and Means meeting on the 19th at 6 p.m. I don't know that agenda hasn't been created. I don't think it's been verified that they will be at the 19th meeting, but I think that's their desire. So they may or they may not be at that meeting. If they're not, it'll be, shortly thereafter. But that's really the only, that's kind of the only movement that I see between the Water and Sewer Commission and the city is that request to be able to borrow money for that work.
Have we given up on any kind of a memorandum of understanding?
I think that's a fair assessment.
Okay,
It's still on the agenda. I mean, it's now kind of just turned into an update on status update. But we have asked for it and asked for it and asked for it maybe 3-4 years now, and it never comes back. So personally, I think I've kind of given up. Any other questions about water or sewer?
Yeah, I got a question. Grinders, have they made any changes in their posture regarding grinders?
No. No, they still allow them.
The life goes on.
And life goes on, yeah.
Okay.
A little bit of a sidebar, I will tell you that you all will recall that you recommended and city enacted limits on the size and the coverage for houses tied to septic systems. Where if you're on a septic system, the size of your house and the lot coverage was going to be is limited to 30% of the lot size. That really has, I think, turned out to be a meaningful change. It has pushed some projects into tying into sewer that were planning to be on septic systems. And it has pushed other projects to reduce the size of their project to stay on the path of septic. So that's been, I've been very pleased to see how effective that change has proved to be. So that's good.
It is good.
Seem to see more permeable driveways too.
Yep.
Well, you guys will also recall that that's now a requirement. So you will see they're almost kind of at the point of finishing the projects out now that were permitted prior to that being a requirement.
Yep.
But we're going to be very close to seeing basically never again a concrete driveway. They'll all be pervious. A lot of those, everything that's being permitted now, it's all 100% pervious hardscape. So
On CBS, not to digress for a second, but on CBS, they were talking about flooding and drainage. And they focused in on Norfolk. And they interviewed people in Norfolk that get flooded spite of the fact that it's a sunny day. So in other words, sunny day flooding. And they talked about pervious driveways and pervious walkways and public space. And that's one of their key issues, one of their key thrusts in order to get the flooding down from basically from king tides. And it was really interesting article, and I think it really was in tune with what we're doing.
That's great.
All right, anything else on, I think we're still on water and sewer. If we don't have anything else, next thing is update on short-term rental recommendations. This one is another one that was kind of in the pipeline with city council at the time of that the lockdown came. This issue, I briefed all of city council on the issue, I think in March. It was then, it was, I will say, in my opinion, it was embraced and it was sent to committee for their recommendation and study. So that went to the Public Safety Committee. The Public Safety Committee then obviously moved on to COVID matters, but it will be starting back with them, and it's on their agenda for tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. So they, I don't know if they'll take time with it or if they will feel comfortable enough with it to make a recommendation tomorrow morning. But the expectation would be once it goes through the Public Safety Committee, then continue on to full council for their consideration and ratification. So that one also should be getting back onto track this month.
Excellent.
Short sidebar, I will say that the part of the reopening process included engaging several of the property management companies, Allen Realty, Seagrass, a few of those, and talking about what could be done to safely reopen. And they had a kind of quick turnaround deadline required by council, but they came up with some kind of general common sense rules to impose, dealing with installing signage at the rentals, notifying the renters of the precautions that they should be taking, things of that nature. So I will say fairly quickly came together and were useful in hashing out what would be an agreeable reopening for that, for the short-term rentals. And today is the day that the short-term rental ban expires and they will be allowed to begin renting as of tomorrow. So obviously not any part of the recommendations from the Planning Commission, but just a short aside on that. Any questions on short-term rental matters? If not, the last thing on the agenda was the discussion of the strategic plan, which we kind of did earlier in the agenda. So we don't have any questions on any of those. I don't have anything else. Rick, anything you want to discuss or anybody else?
No, I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
So I would just close in saying we should, I hope next month we'll be back to normal. It could be a month after that. I don't know. We'll just know when we get there. hopefully we'll also have two new members, and we'll have clear guidance on the strategic plan direction as to where that's going. But we'll just plan on getting started on the comprehensive plan.
That sounds good.
Very good.
All right, with nothing else, we have a motion to adjourn.
I'll go ahead and make that motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
All
Adjourned,
right.
off record at 3:33.